Welcome back. Okay, welcome back to Advocacy Alchemy with Professor Ross. We're going to view a sovereign citizen. Now, if you haven't heard of a sovereign citizen before, let's take a look at what exactly that is. Let's see. Type out here. A little bit of a different computers. GPT. I don't know why I put a capital C. Do okay. All right. So the sovereign citizen movement. I guess let's start there. It says it's an anti-government extremist group. Adherents believe they are not under the jurisdiction of the federal government and are exempt from U.S. laws. They use pseudo legal arguments and conspiracy theories to justify their beliefs. Okay, that's enough to get started. So this person is supposedly a sovereign citizen. Let's see what happens to those who claim they are sovereign citizens.
Before.
Get out of the vehicle. I'm not a fiction, and I'm not under color of law.
We've covered this sovereign citizen before.
Was that so hard? Why do we have to go through that, bro?
But now we've uncovered another attempt to outlawyer the cops. Let's see what happens when his fantasy world meets cold reality.
Okay, so I'm violating your right. Get out of the vehicle.
The initial stop was for driving without a tag light, but these Broward County officers would soon find a tag light to be the least of their worries.
Let me have your driver license and your registration. Huh?
Don't have driver's license, don't have registration. What do you think?
You don't have driver license, you don't have registration, so what are you doing?
Jurisdiction. I don't drive. I travel.
Sovereign citizens will often claim that they are in travel status and not driving, arguing that driving is a commercial activity. Relying on this reasoning, sovereign citizens will often forge their own driver's licenses, license plates, and other official documents.
Okay, so did you hear that? That first thing was, or what he said, the actual person here, talking about he was not traveling, or he was traveling, not driving, trying to make a delineation between the two as if it's different. The thing is, I myself have not been present where there was a true sovereign citizen. I've had, well, let me back up. I've been present when people have tried to use some of the language and it doesn't really go over well. The key thing is to be respectful and continue forth, letting a person know that if they're not an attorney and if they're not actually quoting law from the state that you are in, you can get past many of the issues. All right, so let's jump back in here. Remember, traveling versus driving. Is there really a difference?
Council jurisdiction, man.
Okay, do me a favor, get out of the vehicle.
No.
Turn off the car I get out of the vehicle. Turn off the car and get out of the vehicle. You really gonna violate me right here?
Okay. I don't know if this flag here is supposedly a sovereign citizen flag, but as you'll see, they have a nice ask nicely counter going. It's gonna get pretty high before they do anything what you might think might happen. Okay, let's keep going.
Yes. Turn off the car and get out of the vehicle, sir. This is the last time that I'm gonna ask you for it.
Notice
I
is
gave
up
you
to
my
4.
national identification card, man. Get out of the vehicle, sir. You are really violating the national. Do you need a Florida driver license?
You hear him? He said, "You're really violating a national." I remember one time I was in Panama and we rented a car and we had to go through a checkpoint to get to our condo where we were staying. And I guess they were doing like maybe a drink tank checkpoint. So I pull up my ID, my driver's license from, here, the state that I live in, and my passport. And, they looked at the documents, make sure the car, was who it was supposed to be and where it was supposed to be. Show my documents that I had rented the car. And they saw where we were going, our destination. I had to show it to them on the phone because we didn't know the address. So we showed them on the phone the map where we were going. That's our window right there, and that's been a national somewhere. This guy is born potentially here in the United States. This guy is a citizen, okay, regardless of what he might want to say. All right, let's keep going. Let's see what's going to happen.
A license, not this. I don't drive, sir. Okay. I'm not in your jurisdiction. Get out of the vehicle.
All right, you hear the next thing. I don't drive. But yet you see the gentleman in the car, his car had to be stopped by the police with lights on. That's driving all day of the week. Or actually, here, let's do this. We'll jump over here and we'll get this to define driving. Define driving in the state of Florida. This is a Broward County, which is Miami video we're watching. So that's what we're looking at. What does it mean in Florida to be a driver? In Florida, driving means operating a motor vehicle on public roads and highways. This includes cars, trucks, motorcycles, and other motorized vehicles. All right. That thing he's in is definitely a car all day of the week. So he's driving. Key points about driving in Florida. Licensing requirements. All right, this is kind of key because look, he's asked for a license. He's failed to, or he said, I don't have a license or registration. All right. This says you must have a valid Florida driver's license to drive in the state. New residents must obtain a Florida license within 30 days of moving. To get a driver's license, you must pass a written knowledge test, a driving test, a driving skill test, and a vision test. You must also provide proof of identity, social security number, and Florida residency. All right, this is probably from the DMV. They call it the DHS, probably Department of Homeland Security, motor vehicles. Just my thought. Could be wrong. Traffic laws. Florida has specific traffic laws in Chapter 316 of the Florida statutes known as State Uniform Traffic Control Chapter. All right, this is where it's found, guys. If you live in Florida out there, this is your criminal code that talks about all the traffic offenses. All right, key traffic laws include speed limits, not speeding limits, I'm sorry, but speed limits, traffic signals, stop signs, and rules for passing and turning. The speed limit on rural interstate highways is 70 miles, while urban areas typically have lower limits. School zones are usually clocked at 20 miles per hour during school hours. Point system. It says they use a point system to track driving infractions. You get points for speeding, running red lights. All right, so to get the points, then that means that probably many of their uh, allotment is done through some sort of electronic monitoring means. Probably the cameras on traffic lights are automatically hooked into the driving database. Each points in a certain period can result in a license suspension. 12 points within 12 months will lead to a 30-day suspension. Vehicle registration. Remember, the officer asks for license and registration and insurance. All vehicles must be registered with the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. That's what that DHS, Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles. Proof of insurance is required to register a vehicle. It says you require a minimum of 10,000 in personal injury protection and 10,000 in property damage liability insurance. Okay. All right, let's see what's going to happen. So they're not going to keep asking so nicely several times. So you're going to violate me. All right, let's pause for a second here. Notice that the counter for how many times he asked him to get out of the vehicle is now at 14 times. All right, so there is a such thing as, when you waste the time of these public servants to where you can get in hot water just because of wasting a bunch of time. This is a normal traffic stop that usually ends with simply a ticket and you go about your business. Okay, so this smug look, thinking that he's won the argument, but it really, it really all just begins right here. Anytime that the police have to take additional action, those are new charges. All bets are new charges. What happens is a person gets a chance after an incident has ended to sit down at their desk and write out what happened. And then they go back through and say, well, this is a charge, this is a charge, this is a charge, and this one over here is a charge too. They bring a person then in front of a judge, and the judge does a first judicial appearance. And the first one does not have the prosecution involved. Okay. The first time you go in front of a judge is simply to tell you what you may be charged with. All right. And setting a bond, if a bond can be set. Let's look at how the process works here in Florida. We're going to jump back over here and let's talk about the first record judicial appearance after arrest. It's gonna pull back a bunch of information, but let's see what it says. Because this always deals with certain things like the timing, how long you can remain in jail before you have to be let free, all those kind of things, if you haven't been seen by a judge. All right, first judicial appearance. We're talking very particular to the state of Florida. Watching a video that's happening there. Let's see how this goes. It says your first judicial appearance after an arrest in Florida is called the first appearance or initial appearance. And they say it's crucial in their criminal justice process. Timing. Remember I said about timing. The first appearance must occur within 24 hours of arrest. That's very different than my jurisdiction. My jurisdiction, 72 hours. They have 3 days just in case a person is arrested on Friday. You can make it to the Monday. All right. As required by the Florida Rule of Criminal Procedure 3.13a. If you want to find this, you would simply highlight this and put this, copy this portion, put that in your search engine, and you'll find exactly what this rule is, okay? That's how you do your advanced legal research on a high level. Remember, there's always, as you get smaller and smaller, you're actually finding the very text and the very sentence that you're looking for. Right, the purpose. The hearing informs the defendants of the charges and their rights. The court determines that there is probable cause for the arrest. The judge decides on pretrial release conditions, such as bail. All right. The purpose is clearly defined. This is what that first appearance is for. The procedure. This means in effect when you're in court, this is what it looks like. The defendant appears before a judicial officer, either in person or via video link. That means Zoom, Meet, any of those things. The judge reads the charges and provides a copy of the claim. All right. A person's, and pretty much, I believe in every jurisdiction, you have a right to receive a copy of what the charges levied against you are. So if you ready, and what they use this is not necessarily you, because hopefully you're not getting in any trouble. But if you do find yourself on the wrong side of trouble, remember You have a right to receive the charges being levied against you. A copy. All right. The judge reads the charges and provides a copy of the complaint. The defendant is informed of their rights, including the right to remain silent and the right to counsel. Those are important. Fifth Amendment and the Sixth Amendment together. Fifth and Sixth. All right. If a defendant cannot afford a lawyer, the court will appoint one. Bail and pretrial release. The judge reviews the defendant's request for pretrial release. The judge may set bail, allow a bail bond, or grant release on recognizance. The first two require money to get out. The last one is no money. Conditions of release may include staying law-abiding and having no contact with the victim. Probable cause hearing. If the arrest was without a warrant, a probable cause hearing must be held within 48 hours. The judge determines if there was sufficient evidence to believe the defendant committed the crime. All right, understand in criminal law, you have several bars. You have beyond the reasonable doubt, which is the last bar and the highest in the American criminal justice system. That's closer to 100 than anything else. Okay, so that means beyond all reasonable doubt, everyone believes that the defendant did what the state is saying they did. All right. Below that, you have clear and convincing evidence. You have sufficiency of the evidence. You have by the preponderance of the evidence. So you have various standards. It's important to know what standard you're being held to when you appear in court, or what standard the state is being held to when they go to court. Certain things. Let's see. Got application thing. Okay, let's get back into it. Let's see what's going to happen. Oh, I keep doing that. You see how fast that happened? That officer went from checking the VIN number to helping the other officer open that door, and they were in there. Hey, he was non-compliant. I want to be fair. I'm glad no one got hurt. But the thing is, when you have a police interaction, you're going to keep harping on this. This is going to be the motto for the town. Streets are not the place to argue your case. The streets are never the place to argue your case. Yeah, police background is like too, so that's interesting. All right, let's talk about when a person pleads nolo contendere, what that means. All right, what this means is that a person pleads no contest. That's just a Latin term for, you see how that looks like contest? Contender, contenders contend in contest. All right, no contest plea simply means that a person is not pleading either that they did or that they did not do what they're saying, but they're willing to pay the fine and go ahead and get out of jail. Okay, so he pled on those two charges, no low contendere, let's see, can we back up, resisting without violence and driving with a suspended license. Those are probably two big things. We're gonna look them up. Resisting without violence in Florida. Let's see what this is. See, we don't have this charge in my home jurisdiction, so this is interesting for me. Let's see what this says. All right, resisting officer without violence in Florida. It says in Florida, resisting an officer without violence is defined under, all right, here's our statute, Florida Statute 843.02. All right, this statute makes it a first degree misdemeanor to resist. We'll find out what that means in a minute. Obstruct or oppose any law enforcement officer or other person legally authorized to execute process in the lawful execution of their duties without offering or doing violence to the person of the officer. So without violence. Key elements. All right. So during a trial, a lawyer is trying to prove the elements are either met or not met. Here go the elements for this crime. The defendant must have resisted, obstructed, or opposed a law enforcement officer. The officer must have been engaged in the execution of law or of legal process or the lawful execution of a legal duty, stopping a person on the road. The defendant must have known that the person they resisted was an officer or other person legally authorized to execute process. All right, usually know if a person is an officer if they're wearing a badge or a uniform that looks to be the type of uniform worn by police. All right, they resisted or the resistance must have been non-violent. They even give us examples of what non-violent resistance is. Because I was sitting here thinking about it. Resistance itself is a term of action and usually connotates some form of violence, even if it's very, very small. To touch someone could be considered violence. All right, it says tensing arms while being handcuffed. I guess trying to bow up so you can't uh, close the two arms together to make the cuffs get close enough to snap them shut. Refusing to obey lawful verbal commands. All right, this is what we have here. Refusing to sit down or be handcuffed, giving false or misleading information during a lawful arrest or detention, concealing evidence, refusing to leave an area when required, evading police when there is a reasonable suspicion of criminal wrongdoing, interfering with an active police investigation. Okay. You'll be possible up to 1 year in jail or 12 months of probation for this. That first degree misdemeanor. So it goes right up to, if there's one more day, 1 year and 1 day makes it a felony. You hear us, or you're going to hear me talk about the difference between misdemeanors and felonies and why they aren't considered the same. All right. The Wherever state you live in's Department of Correction only is activated when there's a sentence of more than 1 year. On the administrative side, misdemeanors like traffic tickets and things of that nature are easy to remove from a person's record versus felonies where a person could have or may have served time in prison for more than 1 year are difficult to seal or expunge. Okay. Look, there's a fine associated of up to 1,000. There are certain defenses you can claim also. If there was excessive force being used, then that's a defense. The officer's status is unknown. The defendant must have known the person was an officer. That's why it's important that officers either have, even if they're undercover, and whenever they're breaking their cover, they're supposed to put the badge on the outside some kind of way so that people know. All right. They have that covered in Florida due to their laws. All right. Protected speech. Words alone are generally insufficient to constitute resistance unless coupled with obstructive physical conduct. For unlawful arrest, all right, it says it is legal to passively resist an unlawful arrest, detention, or investigation. This is a tricky one because you have to really define and figure out what an unlawful arrest is. All right, they're considering this a serious offense. It makes sense, right? If you don't have people adhering to the enforcement branch, then you will have a society that will fall.
He was assessed fines.
Listen to this. True. All right, and we give all props to Midwest Safety. And you know what? Let me go back. I'll let them at least play his portion over again. True. All right. Props to Midwest Safety. This video was It was informative, and I'll have to go back. Everyone, I will link this video in the comments if you want to come back and watch. Midwest Safety. This was 3 months ago. A bunch of people watched this because people always wonder, what is a sovereign citizen? And Wikipedia even defines it when you watch the video. It's saying that the sovereign citizen movement is a loose group of anti-government activists, litigants, and tax protesters and financial scammers and conspiracy theorists based mainly in the United States. There were several people who have been shot and killed by the police, and this is not speaking on whether they were wrong or not, but that happened in the Midwest. So apparently this is a big movement that is around, is out here somewhere, and we definitely know it's in the Midwest, Minnesota, and places like that. All right, once again, thank you so much for watching. This is Advocacy Alchemy with Professor Ross. I'll be uploading more of these videos, and I do want to, find enough people where we can start in class, and I can talk about some of these concepts with you all. We can go, team-based, one-on-one, wherever. With that, I am Professor Ross, and you all have a good evening.